Hey friends, it's Bree here.
And Alan.
And we're back. Took a little break, but we're excited to be back and be having interesting conversations. At least we think it's interesting. So this is the Hunter and the Hippie podcast.
And on today's episode, we cover and talk a bit about, we catch up a little bit. We talk a bit about winter and how spoiled we are in Colorado and our brutal winter that we had. But then we get into a whole lot of hunting talk, hunting season, the fun, the suffering, all of that. And then, of course, Bree takes us into the hippie side.
Well, we can't do an episode without both, right? Or neither. So, but a special thank you for, hopefully you're back with us, tuning in, all of our listeners. If you haven't subscribed or put a review or hit the like button, depending on what platform, we'd love for you to do that and share with anyone you think might enjoy this. And a special thank you to Brianna Cote for our photography and marketing materials, and Allison Band, that's Alllyson, for our intro and outro music.
And big thank you to everyone listening and tuning in. And with that, enjoy the episode.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, Bree.
Now when you say it's been a while, you can actually officially, it like really legitimately has been a while.
It has been a long while. It has been a much needed break, at least on my end. I don't know about you, but definitely on my end. And so I'm sure we'll get into a bit of that on this episode. But how are you doing?
I'm doing well, yeah. It's snowing, and I was mentioning that it's been snowing quite a bit the last week and a half, and it seems to always snow when Andy is at work. So I get to do a lot of shoveling. I've decided it's my new cross-training routine, and it typically fulfills the doctor's orders. And when I say doctor's orders, I mean Dr. Huberman.
Yeah.
And that he says to get your 10 minutes of sunlight every morning.
So you're out there. And so for those of you that don't know, Dr. Andrew Huberman, he has his own podcast. He's amazing, but he does say get 10 minutes of sunlight, and that's even if it's cloudy.
Yeah, if it's cloudy, it's 30 minutes, I think, which shoveling takes me far longer than 30 minutes if it's by myself, especially.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot to shovel because do you do the back deck?
Yeah, we do front driveway, front deck, and back deck. And then he's got a shed down below. She has a four-wheeler with a plow on it, so we shovel out around so we can actually open that door. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
It's kind of a running joke because it was supposed to start snowing yesterday, and I was like, oh, how convenient. It hasn't started snowing yet. And I wake up, he gets up, leaves at 4:30 in the morning, and I wake up. I'm like, oh, yeah, there it is.
Time to shovel. He's ducking the shoveling tasks.
Yeah.
It's been, I don't know how it's been for you, but in Colorado, it's funny, this is how spoiled we are, but it's been a rough winter in the sense of we've been getting just a lot of snow and gloomy gray days. And for a while I saw some, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was over 62 days with snow on the ground in Colorado.
Wow.
And that's unheard of, right? We get a storm, it's on the ground for a few days, and it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's been quite the winter.
Yeah.
The seasonal depression is real.
Well, it's interesting because it has snowed a bit here. You know, I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it to.
Mm-hmm.
But we also had some random amazing days. I mean, I think I don't know if it was last month or in January, we had that week of a high of -5, a high of -10,
Mm-hmm.
really nasty, like just cold weather and snow. But that was followed by a 50-degree day or a mid 50s, you know, and so it's fun. I feel like I can't really complain about the winter. It does feel, you know, I'm sick of slipping in the snow when I'm trail running because the snow's up to my ankles and I should be skiing instead of running. But you know, when you have those days that are beautiful that break it up, it's like, well, I can't. You know, that's pretty sweet. It's not like I've had this weather every single day of winter. So I don't know.
Is this your first winter in South Dakota?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why you have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, you know, I came out every month last year, so I was out here in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's different than when you actually live here, right? So how my days
100%.
lined up. And I did drive through many snowstorms last year in the winter to get here. So I know it's meant to be. The snow. Snow.
The price to pay for love.
Yeah, right. That's meant to be too.
Andy will be happy to hear you say that.
Oh man.
That's great. So you're running? Are you training for anything right now?
Tentatively training for a 100-miler in June. So yes, I'm running. That's been my main activity this winter. Yeah, it is challenging. You get really sick of running in the snow. And I don't
Really?
mean
Why is that?
path down snow, you know, it's not bad when you find a closed forest road that the Forest Service has driven on. Yeah, you know, there's not a ton of areas unless you're running on the road that are optimal for running as of lately. So
snow in the shoes, post-holing, all the fun stuff.
And I can deal with my feet. You know, your feet are cold to start. They warm up. Your body's cold to start. And if you're dressing properly, it warms up. But just going uphill in that slippy snow is not fun.
No. So tell me, you like skimmed over this 100-miler. You're like, oh, 100-miler.
Yeah.
This is the longest distance you've done?
Yeah, it'll be right? The longest distance. Before
that, it was the thoroughfare.
Yeah.
For like 60 some miles. Right?
Yeah, the thoroughfare was like technically 100K. Not like it just happened to be 100K. So that is, it was just about 63 miles. So, yeah.
That's exciting. So you're adding 37 miles if I actually learn to do math.
Yeah, I think it's actually the one I plan to do. I haven't signed up yet because I'm waiting on some life things before committing to it.
Yeah.
But if it does happen, this one is actually over 100 miles. So that's the funny thing about the trail world. Everything is. They group them into the categories, right? A 50K, a 50-miler, a 100K, a 100-miler. But it's known that it's not going to be exactly that amount.
Right. The trail doesn't just end.
Yeah. So there are some 100-milers that are like 99 miles or 99.5. And
do people run in the parking lot or something?
You know, and I don't know. I'm like, I feel I have mixed feelings. One, it's like, well, if I'm running 100 miles, like I want it to be 100 miles. well, you've ran 99. Like, that's pretty awesome too. Like, what's one, like,
For sure.
like, do you really need to like top off that last mile? So
Yes, it has to be on the watch. I remember when I used to like track all my stuff and wear a watch and everything, and I remember like just hiking, not trail running or doing anything crazy, and like getting to like 4.8 miles and be like, nope, just start walking around the parking lot until you get 5. There's no way I would be able to do 99 and then just be like, that's good.
Yeah. I know. I
But
don't know.
that's also why I stopped wearing wearables, because
Okay.
of that reason. Like, you're right. Like, there's something about it. Like, to say 99 miles is still pretty fucking badass.
Well, here's the question. Where is your cutoff as to rounding it off to the next mile or not?
It's just like
So if you're at 4.6, are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm not. I used to not even round up at all. I'm like, who cares? Like, I'm running so much this week, it's all gonna even out. Like, my miles, my checkbook will never be an even number.
That bothers me too, but that's a different subject.
You know, like the tipping, when
yeah.
someone tips to make their final number
0,
0. I'm like, but
No.
your checkbook is never nothing is ever going to be that, because you're going to spend money on something that you don't tip that is not going to be an even like.
Right.
So that's how I look at my running miles. Is I now will sometimes, like, if I'm at 4.8 and it's an easy place to just like keep running, I'll add it on. But if I'm at 4.6, I'm at 4.6.
Interesting. No. If it was 4.4, I would be like, all right.
See, so that's why I was like, what's your cutoff? Is it like below the the
it's
roundup?
like normal math. Yeah, it's like normal math, right? Like, you're above the 4.5, you gotta round up. But you gotta keep going.
Yeah, but do you take away your 0.3 if you're a 4.3?
No. It's funny. I'm sure so many people can relate to this conversation. I've seen so many people in parking lots, like at trailheads, walking.
Well, yeah,
oh, I know what you're doing.
I've ran with someone, and they were like, we got to the trailhead parking lot, and they kept going, and I was like, what are we doing? Like, why are you still running? We got to make it to 8. And I was like, oh, okay, like, sure. And I don't know if it's just like I run enough that it doesn't matter for train, you know, like, or maybe it does. And if it does, I'm usually going to choose a route that I know I'm going to get my mileage in.
Right.
But I do think, I don't know. Yeah, I do. With the race, I think smart race directors make sure it's always default on it being a little over versus a little under, because I also wouldn't want to deal with someone deal with that, people just being pissed off that it wasn't 100 miles and you're like, come on, man, you design a race. you work
Right.
Maybe you shouldn't have take the inside corner of every turn, and then it would be 100 miles.
Right. Try getting lost next time, buddy.
Yeah.
You'll get your 100 miles.
So yeah, I think this one's like 106 actually.
Really?
Rumor has it. I don't remember. It's definitely like, it's not like the 1 or 2 miles over. I'm pretty sure it's like a solid 5.
That's
plus.
Like 6 miles after doing 100. Like, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So.
I love how you're just like nonchalant about it.
Well, I haven't done it yet, so it's really easy to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
When at the end of the thoroughfare, I was like, I don't need to do 100 miles. I'm good. This is good. I'm good. Like, as I was the last 5 miles of that, I was like, yeah, I don't need to do that. This has pushed my limits enough. I'm good. And then a week after that, I was looking up 100-mile races to try to do at the end of summer. And I didn't, for many reasons. I had like breathwork training, or no, I had yoga therapy training and things like that, but it's amazing
Why?
how quickly you forget.
Yeah. Why is that? Why, like, because I mean, I'm the same way about certain things, and right, like, it applies to like many things.
Yeah.
Right. Like they say, like, once you get your first tattoo, right, like people will be like, no, I'm never doing it again. It hurts. And then, then they're covered in tattoos, or,
Yeah.
right. It's the same thing with, I remember when I was training for triathlons, I never had a willingness to do an Ironman.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then after my Olympic distance,
Mm-hmm.
I was like full blown Ironman training.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Like,
I think so I have to ask the question to sort through what my thoughts on it are.
mm-hmm.
When you're saying it, so mine was while I was in it in the last 5 miles, I was like, I don't ever need to do this again.
Right.
Is that when it's coming up for you, or is it like even after you've finished it, like 5 minutes after, you're like, yeah, I'm good, I don't need to do this ever again?
That's typically when it happens.
Okay.
And then right, I think it goes back to, I think we've talked a little bit about type 1, type 2, type 3 fun.
Yeah.
Right? I think there might be some tie there, right? So type 1 fun it's fun. It's just always fun.
Yeah.
Type 2 fun is it fucking sucks. And then after, like, you look back on it, whatever the time frame is,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, you're like, oh, okay, that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which is what this sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where it's like, I never want to do this again. I don't want to go any further. This pushed my limits. And then, however long later, you're like, oh, that was fun, actually. And I can do it.
Yeah.
And I want to add 40 miles, right? You're not even like going to like, oh, let's add 10 or 20. You're just like there's this big gap. And I think it's just by nature of the way trail running is designed, like you said. But then there's type 3 fun where it's never fun.
Well, it's like someone might die.
Right.
Like it's like risk, like it's
right.
Yeah, it's something you don't ever want to be in.
Right.
Like mistakes were made.
Yeah, many mistakes were made. Yeah, I think that's part of it, right? So that's usually when it happens for me. It's usually never immediate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like even with hunting, it happens a lot for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll be hunting and I'm like, fucking hate this. This sucks. I don't want to be doing this.
Like I'm not going out another day.
Right. Yeah. And sure as shit, like the next morning you wake up and you take your ass out and you do it again, or like at the end of a hunting, like really at the end of a hunting season,
mm-hmm.
especially elk hunting, you're just like, nope, I'm gonna quit elk hunting. I'm good. I don't need to do it.
See, I never felt that way, but I also haven't shot an elk yet, and so I don't know if there's just I'm like chomping at the bit because I'm like, I think I look back and think, man, I should have gone out more days, or all of those, even though I shouldn't. Like I went out, I think last year 15, 16 days.
Yeah.
I still have to work, so it's like I put in time and I put in miles, but then I'm always thinking like, oh man, but like, could we have done that? I mean, you can't live in that because you made the decisions that you did at the time.
Right.
And you don't know, like, yeah, you could have gone there, you could have checked out this other area, but there's no telling. So I feel like it leaves something to, I definitely have had my limit out there where I was like, I need a day off. Like I definitely have had that a stretch of 10 days. And it's like, I need a day off to mentally reset. Like physically I can keep doing this, but like I'm past it right now. And that day like helps to reset and like go back out with a renewed energy or renewed perspective, or maybe it's a few days and it renewed for me. But I would say like an unsuccessful season, how I'm defining success is that I don't have elk meat in the freezer from that hunt. it was
Right.
successful in many different other ways.
Yeah.
100%. But I, from a logistical or from a very clear cut perspective, I think like all right, I'm going to go out next year and there's, what can I do more of or differently?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the running, it was like, I'm done and I'm like, yeah,
Interesting.
I don't know. And I think what it is, and I thought of this now as we're talking, so it'll be like a little two-part, but I think what it is then you have the sense of accomplishment, and that makes you be like the suffering was okay because of the quote unquote accomplishment. But
Right.
I also think you remember all the good parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you don't remember the slog or whatever it might be, but you remember all the good parts of it, and that's what drives you to then, okay, let me do this again. And
Yeah.
the second part is I wonder why we don't why we don't do that in other areas of our life.
Like what? Do you have an example?
Like focus on the good parts.
Mm. Yeah.
And
We
I
tend to
think
focus on the negative.
yeah, we start to just carry the negative of what's happened with us and focus on the negative of past things and let them determine how we interact now or in the future.
Interesting. Yeah.
But with some heartbreak, if you're the one getting your heart broken, a lot of times you also, or when it's over and people have struggle with moving on from it, a lot of times they say it's because you're just remembering all of the quote unquote good. So I don't know. It's relevant in some ways and not in others.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I think for hunting, for me, right? Like it's easy to forget about how hard it is. And this is like really specific to elk hunting. Like most hunting is hard, but elk hunting, especially in Colorado, is really difficult, right? We've talked about that. But I think it's easy to forget because it's hard physically, and I think, right, like we know that, and we're capable, right? We're capable to deal with that. I think what you touched on is important. It's the mental aspect. Like my mind breaks way quicker than my body ever does.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can absolutely keep going physically for as many days as I need to. But it's when, right, in Colorado, it's so much so that you don't see elk.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You are literally just walking around the forest, the mountains, hunting this invisible creature that doesn't exist until it does.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind fuck there is just like, it's just I don't even know. And I tend to forget about that until you go back out and you do it again.
Well, because there's no specific day that arises. There's
True.
no when you hit that point, it's not like you're not like, oh, I'm on day 6, this is gonna happen now.
Yeah.
So I think there's that part, you can't really anticipate it, and so maybe there's a part of you thinks maybe that won't happen this time. Maybe I'll get my elk on day 3 and
Day
I'll
one.
never, or opening day, and I'll never have to experience that.
That's what's really funny is I do have that thought every year. Is like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna get an elk the first day I'm out there. And that's the biggest fucking lie. Like, that is yet to happen.
Yeah.
And like, and I feel like it's funny because I feel like it's like such a smack in the face too. You're just like, yeah, no, I'm going to get this day one. And it's just like this like cruel reality, like slap in the face. Just wake up like,
to a
dummy.
Snowstorm.
Yeah, right. Right. It's like, hey, dummy, remember this? Yeah, no, it doesn't happen on the first day.
Yeah. No, this last season we were not super far in, but far enough where we were kind of base camped and a good launching point.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the days it had snowed, and we had snow early on, and it was fine. You know, I was like, I'm good, you know, solid. But just everything felt wet and cold, you know, and I remember sitting and like eating lunch and just like not being able to get warm. And you walk so slow. And I think that's one of the things I was like, I just want to run because like I know that I can get my body warm. But here you are just trudging slowly, frozen boots, frozen hands, and yeah, we had our wood burning stove in the tent, so that was always a nice thing to come home to in the evenings. So,
that's a luxury right there.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feeling of like never, especially when you're out in like the middle of nowhere and never being able to be warm.
Yeah.
It's just something, and again, it wears on you mentally because you're just it's right. You get in bed and you curl up in this supposedly warm sleeping bag and nope, right? Like it's just you get to be cold.
Yeah.
24 hours a day, and you're just cold enough that it's annoying. Right, but you're not dead.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and it's to have a stove. I don't think I've ever had a. Actually, we went on a deer hunt. I went on a deer hunt with my buddy Ganesh, and it was freezing cold. The wind was whipping, and we got back to where we were camping at our like little tents with little 2-man tent. And there was someone posted up who had like a wall tent, and the stove and everything. And I'm wearing everything. I have layers upon layers on, and I'm still cold, like you're saying. And these guys invited us into their tent.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, whatever. And literally, we walk into this big wall tent, and instantly started sweating.
Yeah.
I was like, what in the world? They had like this wood burning stove, and.
Yeah.
I was like, what in the world's going on here? Instantly, I had to start like shedding layers.
Yeah.
Because it was so hot. Mm-hmm. And I was like, is this what luxury camping is like?
So like we're in between. Like we have a teepee tent. We don't have a wall tent.
Okay.
So we're not quite that luxurious. But definitely a step up from the days that just use our regular backpacking tent. So.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have not upgraded.
Except when you're actually one day.
Yeah.
We were on a slant, and so then he's like, you got to be really careful because there's one person on either side of the for the teepee tent. The stove is in the middle, and so we're on either side of it. And
so if it's downhill, you got to roll.
So I was like kind of just a little bit of a slant. The whole thing wasn't downhill, but like just my area. And so I kept like every night I was just like couldn't get comfortable type of thing and stay like far enough away. And so then one night I was like, okay, I feel like this is good, but I'm definitely close. And then all of a sudden I'm like my eyes start burning and I'm like, what is going on right now? And something had clogged the chimney. And the whole teepee tent was like filling with smoke.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so then I like pull up my head, like unzip one side and like stick my head outside. And then Andy's got his gloves on and he's like taking it apart because it's hot, right? And so he's like taking it apart real quick, like takes it outside of the teepee tent and like dumps it out. But something like some type of soot had like clogged up in the chimney. But we're in there and I'm like, what is going on? My eyes are burning, like. And all of a sudden, the whole thing is like filled with smoke, and we're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like,
it's like your house is on fire in that moment. That's awful.
And it was like I finally found my like perfect spot. Like we were joking because you hear like I'm moving around like on my sleeping pad, all my like down is like squishing against each other to get comfortable for like 5 minutes, and I'm sure it was super annoying for him. And then finally I was like, there we go. And I like this is a spot where I like my head's like even, everything's good, perfect, and then I'm like, oh, what's going on?
I know that sound oh too well. I'm such a terrible sleeper outside.
Yeah.
And when I have to share a tent with people, I tell people, I'm like, look, I move all night. Like you hear exactly the sleeping pad, the sleeping bag, all of it.
Yeah.
I cannot get comfortable in the backcountry.
Gosh.
How was your last season? So you didn't get an elk. You clearly said that you haven't gotten an elk.
Yeah, I didn't get an elk. But it was good. We were above 9,000 for most of it. Checked out some desert elk on the way home from that hunt, and then spent a few days closer to here looking for elk, and no signs at all. So, but antelope was successful. I had a doe tag, and
nice.
That I just love it. It's just so fun. It's so fun.
Antelope hunting is the best.
Yeah, it's like we got in the afternoon, put on a few stalks, the next morning put on a stalk, got an antelope, done. And that's one that you kind of like. I think the fun part of going in a group, so we met my friend down there, and we had a time crunch. Otherwise, we would have like hung out for a bit, and weather was coming in anyway, so he was taking off and then gonna go back a different date. But I think the fun part about a group with that is because you can get them you can fill that so quickly. But it's fun, like, and so it's like, you want to just like stick around and go for other people's like stocks, and it's usually nice weather, and I don't know.
And it's, you're not hunting an invisible animal.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the for me, like antelope hunting is hands down my favorite.
Yeah.
Because you can see the animal, even if you don't get anything, you're just at least you're like, there they are. And now let me go after it.
Yeah.
And then, right, they see everything, so you're likely to bust them, but, right, and even to your point, it's so fun to even help other people because it's just this, there they are. And with elk hunting, you don't want to hunt with other people because you haven't even gotten success yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And I've actually, like, I love helping other people hunt, but now I'm at a point where when people are like, oh, can you help me elk hunt? I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Sorry, not going to do it. And it's not because I don't want to help people hunt. Mm-hmm. Elk hunting is just so hard. Whereas, like, if people want to, like, hunt, I'll take them deer hunting for mule deer. But
yeah,
because that's a whole lot. It's not easy, but it's easier relatively. And the antelope, though. The antelope, like you said, a group hunt, we actually try to do... that's where we try to have like a group hunt. We try to get people and make it fun because it is.
Yeah.
And
just like being able to put on multiple stocks in a day versus, like you said, like you go days without maybe even seeing a sign.
Last season, I didn't hunt any antelope last season. I didn't get drawn for anything, but my buddy Jeff got drawn for muzzleloader here in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to go with him. I was working and dealing with some other stuff, but he had service where he was, and he was texting me. He took 11 shots. and what's funny, right? Like he didn't hit any until he finally got his 11th one.
Yeah.
But right, one, it just tells you that's how hard muzzleloader is. But it at no point are you really ever like defeated. Like, yeah, you want it to happen, but you know with antelope hunting that you're gonna get another chance.
Yeah.
Whereas with elk hunting, I remember it was my third archery season elk hunting without success. And I shot an arrow over a cow's back. And I knew that I wasn't going to get another shot.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's so defeating. Whereas with antelope, 11 shots later.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I still have the voicemail when he finally got one. He's like, I got one.
Well, and that's like the first night we were out. I had kind of had an opportunity, but I don't know, something felt off, and they were kind of a little stacked up, so I was just like waiting, and then once they like dispersed a little bit, I was like, I could have taken a shot, and I don't know, I felt like we just drove in there. I probably just wasn't settled in,
Right.
But it was okay, right? Like then we saw another herd and just went and stalked them, and then the next morning it all happened. But it's one of those where I was willing to pass on something, not feeling my prime, versus trying to like force myself into, and not that like because I'm a newer hunter as well, with even with elk, like I'm not gonna force a shot, right? And I'm not saying if I wasn't new I would force a shot, but I'd have more comfort with certain things that I even my first season over my second season, right? I'm willing to like take a little bit a shot from further away than I did the year before, and not because I'm pushing my boundaries, but I'm more comfortable
100%
having shot at 200 yards leading up, in the summer and all of that. But it's with antelope, it's fun that you're like, I can pass on this because I know like I'll probably have another opportunity.
And you don't feel rushed either, right? Like you said, you just got there, and where an elk, like you see elk, you gotta go.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, shit, do I have time? Do I have daylight? Do I have the energy? Whereas with antelope, you're like, yeah, it'd be fun, but there'll be more tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pushed my limits. So I was successful in Wyoming. I didn't do much hunting this year, sadly. I got 0 days of archery. I didn't spend any hunting time in Colorado, actually. But I was successful in Wyoming. And it was a super fun hunt, but I did push the limits on some shooting, and it was fun. And it was, the reason I did it was for the same reason that we're talking about, was because I knew I was going to have, so we were in a spot where we found multiple herds of elk. And I'm talking hundreds, like largest herds of elk that I've ever seen. And there was probably like 3 herds there was one herd that was probably like 150 elk. And then there was, the big herd was like 300 plus elk. It was massive. And so the first herd that we went to, I actually took like a 720 something yard shot. And and I was like, screw it. So there were a few things that, right, like that got me to the point of saying screw it. Was this specific herd, we couldn't get closer without them seeing us.
Mm-hmm.
It was just wide open. The features of the land, how many elk there were, everything about it was just like, screw it. I'm gonna just, because I knew I had another herd to go after,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I'm gonna see what happens. And elk are a pretty big target,
Mm-hmm.
and then right, it also was totally part ego too, to be like, fuck yeah, I shot an elk at over 700 yards.
Have you shot that? What's the longest distance you shot?
I've shot 800.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but I haven't shot a lot at 800.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I know as much as I would like the ballistics of my weapon at 800.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, so when I took the shot, it was a beautiful shot. I knew like everything about it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I just think my ballistics were off, so I missed.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know if it went high or low. I think it was low.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was because of just ballistics and not shooting enough at 800 yards and
Mm-hmm.
not knowing, right, exact ballistics for it.
Mm-hmm.
So when, it was fun to just, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna try it,
Mm-hmm.
right, see what happens, and if it happens, that'll be fucking badass, and if it doesn't, it'll make a good story.
Yeah.
And and it didn't happen, and that's cool, and I was okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt like such the perfect shot. Everything was just like my sight, the squeeze of the trigger, just all of it was just beautiful. And I know if the ballistics were right, it would have been a hit.
Yeah.
And then we ended up leaving that herd, and we dropped our packs.
Mm-hmm.
Never drop your pack. We always say this too. We always say this too. Never drop your pack, but we always do for some stupid reason. And we ended up being like 2 miles from our pack. It was bad. And we didn't even mark the location of our packs. And we're like, fuck. Like now we have to figure out which knob it was on. And
Yeah.
so we had to go back, find our packs. And we hiked back to the truck to regroup.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, again, sort of just that mental, like, putting a lot of mileage on. And then we're like, all right, what's our game plan? And we made a move on the second herd, and then, yeah, I was successful. Like a 450-yard shot or something. But it's fun. It's fun taking longer shots, in my mind.
Mm.
Just because, right, like, you practice, and you want to see, like, part of, like, part of just, like, being there and them not knowing, and I got some cool video of this herd. Again, it was like 300 elk.
Mm-hmm.
And there was very little features.
Mm-hmm.
So after I took the shot, you just see them run around this like hill, but you know where they're going. They're going to end up back in the wide open.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good time. What's scary about it is and this happened. So I took the shot. And the whole herd, right? Like, once you take the shot and then the whole herd moves,
Mm-hmm.
you sort of lose the one you shot.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also like, what's going on? There's just like chaos everywhere. And they all went behind this knob, and I couldn't see anything. So we got up and we started running a little bit to get closer. And as they come around this knob, like, you're looking for the injured one.
Mm-hmm.
If there is, if you got it, and there's the chance that the injured one is behind the knob still.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, it was like, we're losing daylight, and I'm lined up on another elk at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going through this whole thing in your head, like, you don't know what happened to that other elk, the one that you supposedly shot. Like, did you shoot it? Did it hit? And what sucks is you have to take that as, yes, you did.
Mm-hmm.
right? Even if you didn't, and I'm sitting there lined up, the safety was off, and I was like, and all I'm thinking in my head is I can't shoot,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I have no clue if I hit the other elk.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get up, and thankfully I didn't shoot, because when we get up and we go around the knob, and she was down
Yeah.
behind the knob, and it was a good reminder, because that would have been a hot mess if I would have shot a second elk.
Yep.
But it's that easy, right? We're all human, and we want to achieve what we're out there to do, but you got to make sure you're making good ethical decisions, and sometimes that means, right, like there's the chance that we could have went around that corner and she wasn't down, and blew the hunt, and that's part of it. But
yeah, but you would have felt better knowing you did the right,
absolutely,
the right thing, even if you took that precaution and she wasn't down.
100%. And the herd just stopped like 700 yards out, so I would have just restocked that same herd.
Yeah.
That's the fun thing. Like elk, they're not smart, or they're as smart as they're gonna be.
Yeah. But are they? Because I feel like when rifle season comes, they know where to not be.
True. You're right.
They know, oh, this private land, I won't get shot at on this ranch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to go just hang out here.
Yeah. And they hang out just on the other side of the fence, too. It's like they know.
Yeah. I think there's I think they're smart.
They definitely have some good
survival
defensive mechanisms.
Yeah.
So that's good. It sounds like did you hunt deer at all or no?
No. The first year I got every tag, and I was just, I didn't have the capacity to do it all. So my priority this year was elk. But I put in for antelope and elk. And I knew that I didn't draw my special unit, so I just did general elk. So that was my priority. And then it was interesting because antelope season was closing, so I really only had like a short period that I could get down there, and so we actually jumped shortened elk hunting by 2 days to pop down there. Not really, because it was just elk was open in different general units all over, so
Yep.
it was just a fine little, I was like, well, we're coming out because I needed to do a work call and just reset. And then we talked about do we go back up in there? And then instead we checked out a deserty area for a morning, and then went and picked up our dog and headed south to antelope hunt. We really only
Did you take her?
Yeah.
You took her antelope hunting?
Yeah, we left her in the truck when we were stalking them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, our friend had his dog too.
Oh, that's
but
really
he's
fun.
his dog's 14 years old, 13 years old.
So he wasn't doing much of anything.
He was just walking around with a poop half out of his butt. But they were cute. It was fun to have, it was fun at night, they'd play around and we just sit around so it, we knew we only had 24 hours. We literally went down and had to be back because Andy had to work. So we're well, let's see how this goes. We have until 3 o'clock or 5. I think we said we'd stay there until 5 p.m. the next, or I don't know. It was about a 3.5 hour drive from where we were. So
Yeah.
but it worked.
That's the one fun thing about antelope is that
Yeah.
you can get it done same day,
Yeah.
right? And it depends on how hard you push and right, but with antelope hunting is like a good beginner first hunt to like, get you into it.
But it's just so different. Like it is, but it isn't because it's so. I mean, it's just so. I guess it's good to get like any nerves of killing your first animal and things like that.
Right.
But it's so different, I think, than elk or deer.
Very.
And I mean, last 2 seasons ago, we got it done in a morning. Like where we drove out. I had a tag just near where I lived. Drove out that morning, picked up some breakfast burritos. And by 1 o'clock we're back in the garage, like
Processing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish that was elk hunting.
Do you though? Do you?
No. Because then everyone would be doing it.
Yeah.
But also, like, there is the part of the suffering, right, that makes elk hunting enjoyable. Because when it does happen, like even like this last season when it finally happened, it was just like, we were still packing it out. Sadly, we didn't get to drive the truck right up to it this time. Right, we had like a good 2 mile pack out that felt like it went on forever.
Yeah.
But when you have the weight on your back and your hands are a little bloody and you're just like, yes, like this is like this is it. This is why you do it. And it's fun. It's really satisfying. And knowing that, like we just did a ski trip, and there was like 8 adults on the ski trip, and a bunch of kids, like 6 kids, and for one night I cooked elk for everyone.
Yeah.
And it was just like knowing that where that meat came from and knowing that, the hard work that we put into it to get it there and that it's organic and sustainable and right field to table and no one else touched this. All the goodies, and it just that's what like gets me going back. That's when I'm like, yes. Yeah. The first 4 years of elk hunting where I wasn't successful, I don't know what kept me going back. Stupidity. But
the hope. the inkling of hope.
Yeah. Yeah. But now it's absolutely like, what were you going to say?
Oh, no. It's almost like you don't want to be a failure, right? And so it's almost like when you finally get it, it eliminates all those other years of effort from being failures, right? In a sense, because it's the building blocks, it's the learning, it's the time put in. But
it really is. You got to pay the cost, right? And right, the cost is. I think we've talked about this on an episode, but right, like you have to pay the full price. You don't get to pay less. There's no discount, right? Like those years that you put in, it's all years that you learned. It's right, whether you're hunting the same terrain, it's years that you learn the terrain. It's years that you learn the behaviors of the animal and why they do what they do, and like knowing, like this last hunt, knowing that they were going to circle because elk like to circle. They don't run straight away. So knowing that if they went one direction, they would be still in the wide open. And then if they went the other direction, the way that I thought they went and the way that they were going to go, they were just going to come right back out into wide open territory.
Yeah.
So it's just, you learn so much.
Yeah.
And you said something earlier. You said it's a successful hunt, even though if you don't get something. And you learn so much about yourself out there. how strong you are and how capable you are, and yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And you learn who you can hunt with.
Yes.
Or who's the same style in a sense. Like, because there are plenty of people who aren't willing to put in 10 miles a day.
Right.
Who are not fair weather, but like they're not willing to do that.
Yeah. Oh, it's cold. Oh, it's windy. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, good for them. But yeah, if you're hunting with me, be prepared for the suck. It's funny. I took a friend deer hunting a couple seasons ago, and he went. He told one of our mutual friends about it, and he was like, and he was successful.
Yeah.
He got his deer, but he was like, man, he's like, Alan had me fucking running up and down these mountains, and I was out of breath most of the time. And I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Like, we're gonna fucking work. I don't like this. It's funny, there's all sorts of odds about hunting and odds whether you're gonna get one or not, and I don't like that. My odds are 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm doing everything in my fucking power. Or like antelope hunting. When we were antelope hunting a few years back, like we saw people didn't even leave their car.
Yeah.
They would literally just drive around.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's like you said, I'm going to do everything in my control. But it's also, for what I realized, what I thought a lot about this elk season was, it's also no matter what I do, nothing's guaranteed. And so it is and it's not that mentality to do less. It's just a really great reminder in life that we are not in control.
Yes.
So like no matter what you do, your outcome is never the outcome you want, that you're thinking your efforts are going to get. None of that is ever, ever, ever guaranteed in life. And that's, it's like, okay, I'm doing all of this. And in a sense, you're doing it so that you know that you did everything you possibly could. But ultimately, none of that, even in the end, is a guaranteed outcome.
Yes, 100%. I love that. Look at us bringing the hippie into the hunting.
But it was like I thought about other like situations of that where people, they're doing everything they can because they want this thing, a certain outcome, and they're making all the right choices, they're putting in the effort, whatever it might be, and it's still not guaranteed, and how hard that is in other areas of life.
Yeah.
And it helped me like connect the dots for like certain people in my life that are doing something different, but in a similar struggle.
Yeah. It's beautiful. So I'm rereading. Hold on, I want to grab it real quick because I just read this. Hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
So I'm actually reading
the
nice. Bhagavad Gita.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And so there's multiple versions. I don't think there's actually like a true version of the Bhagavad Gita. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? But there's multiple versions because it was written in Sanskrit, and Sanskrit does not translate to English. Like it is terrible the way Sanskrit translates to English, and that's why there's multiple variations. But this one is my favorite translation. Eknath Eswaran.
That's the one I have.
Is this the one you have?
Open to Shloka 247.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, read Shloka 247.
247. Look at you. You know your You know your Bhagavad Gita.
No, I know parts of my Bhagavad Gita.
And it's funny, this might actually be what I'm thinking of, because I literally just read it.
It's been my like focal point for a few months after hunting season, but it has been my driver of to act, actually.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, you nailed it. You're hilarious. And like there's a bunch of stuff in this, right? This is the self-realization, right, chapter or part. But yeah, 247 in the Bhagavad Gita, you have the right to work, but never to the fruit of work. You should never engage in action for the sake of reward, nor should you long for inaction. And then 248, I'll just go right into it. Perform work in this world, Arjuna, as a man established within himself, without self-attachments, and alike in success and defeat. For yoga is perfect evenness of mind. It's funny. I love that you knew exactly where I wanted to go in this book.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's why we're friends, Brie. That is why we are friends. But yeah, I'm going through a lot of life changes. And I'm reading a bunch of stuff. I'm reading this other book called Already Free, and it's this. Have you read that?
No.
I recommend it. It's this doctor out of Boulder.
Okay.
And it's this book that he wrote about the cross or the mix or the mend between psychotherapy and Buddhism. And so it's pretty good. And then as I was reading that, it made me think of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
And I started like reading it in synchronization with it. Like, so like I'll read parts of Already Free and then I'll come to this. And yeah, that specifically what I just read, that's really been hitting home, because it's like, all right, what do I want in life? And we've talked about this before where, right, it's good to have a direction, but you have to embrace whatever comes up. And that's really part of it is, right, like you think you know what you're building, or you know where you're going, or you know this journey, and you have to be open that it's not going to work out the way you think, most likely.
Well, and that's the difference between direction and outcome.
Yeah.
And that's what I always talk about, intention versus goal, because a goal is bound by very strict limitations. You've already determined what it looked like, whereas an intention moves you in the direction of a quote-unquote goal, but it leaves the outcome open, and it allows for so much more possibility of the outcome, because it's not tied to one looking a certain way, but also that goal is created on what you already know. Because so it's created on the past.
Yeah.
It doesn't open any doors that you didn't even know were there to be opened.
Absolutely. And hunting is the perfect analogy for all this, because the past does not predict the future. We like to think that. And we use prediction models to tell us that the past predicts the future, but it absolutely does not. And hunting is it, because I can't tell you how many hunting seasons I've gone to the same place thinking, right, like day one, I'm going to get this elk, or I'm going to get this animal, because I know where they're at.
Yeah.
And guess what? They're not fucking there. And, right, the past does absolutely not predict the future.
And I always forget to emphasize or like touch on this point of memory and like prediction models, and all of those are useful tools. It's just that you have to understand they aren't reality. You can't be
and they're
controlled by them. And even if they're right or wrong, you can't be tied to them as the truth. It's being open to what is presenting itself every moment.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. Love it. This is a great first episode back.
Yeah.
Talking about the hunter and the hippie.
Yeah, we're back in it.
Yes, we are. And so it's funny. I've actually been talking. I still talk about it. Or I still tell people about the show, and we just took a break due to life events, mainly on my end. But right, like the reason we started this show, if this is maybe your first episode back, or just starting listening, is it's the paradox. It's right when you tell people you're a hunter, you definitely don't get classified as a hippie too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
I think it's becoming more, I'm seeing, I guess more like naturalists or more people, like even a lot of people in this, and I'm only familiar with this from like growing up in California, but like the surf community. And I don't know if it's just because I like seek out people, like I not seek out people similar to me, but like I'm always looking up people who are doing farms or things like that, trying to get ideas because of what I want to create. And it's surprising actually how many people are, you would think are just like surf bums or hippies, and they incorporate hunting into their life because of really what it is, what it provides for you.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly it, is we wanted to share our perspective, right? And we say that a lot, right? Like anything that we talk about is just from our perspective, and this thought of just because you're one thing doesn't mean you're another, and it doesn't mean that they can't coexist together, and it doesn't mean that you're anything either. Right? You always say that one best, where you're like, I forget what you say, but you always say it best, where you're like right, I'm hunter and hippie, and I'm neither.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is it. I love it.
All right. Are we ending with some breath and some journal?
Let's do it.
So all the people who skip this, you can press stop now, but do yourself a service and take a couple connected breaths.
Yeah. So before Bree leads us, before you push pause, don't push pause. Hear me out just for 1 second. Before Bree leads us through breath, look at your breath right now. Is it shallow? Is it uneven? Right? Are you, as you're listening to this, what are you doing? Right? Are you at work? Are you driving? Are you stressed out? Take a look at how your breath is tied to what you're doing. Right? The breath is a leading indicator of what you have going on. Right? So if you're stressed, if you're in your fight or flight response, it's likely your breath is really shallow. And so if that's you, don't pause this. Okay, you need to listen to what Bree's about to tell you.
No one needs anything. They're exactly where they're meant to be.
True. Yes. But if your breath is deep and beautiful, right, take advantage of this too.
We'll just make it short. I think it's important to know it doesn't have to be this elaborate practice. I tell people, set an alarm, if you want to get wild, like the top of every hour. Otherwise, like in the morning, 3 full connected mindful breaths. In the evening, 3 full connected mindful breaths. That's all. do more. Yeah. I think you can incorporate throughout the day, but it's just breaking the pattern of the subconscious. That's all the breath is doing, is by changing your breath, you're breaking the automatic. So we'll make it short so you can have an example of all that you really need to do. And so you can do this with your eyes open. I always recommend softening the gaze if you keep your eyes open, so that you begin to remove outside stimulation, outside input. Otherwise, close the eyes if that's available. And just notice your first breath when you close your eyes. Notice how it feels in the body without comment or judgment, just feeling it as it is. And staying connected to this internal attunement from simply closing the eyes or softening the gaze or bringing attention inward. We'll take 3 full breaths. So breathing in, expand the belly, expand the chest. And then as you exhale, relax the body as you release effort, breathing out. And again, breathe into the belly. Chest expands. And slow, steady breath out. And one last time, guiding yourself as you breathe in. And as you breathe out. And release the effort in your breath completely and just notice how you feel in this moment, whether it's changed or not. Just feel it. And you can open your eyes if they aren't. And take that feeling with you throughout your day, knowing how simple it is to reconnect with it, that it's always there inside of you.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah.
It was perfect. Grab your journals. So if you're new to the show, we do a journal prompt with every episode. So grab your journals, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's your phone. I've been using my phone a lot lately, just like the Notes app. So I don't miss a thought, because I just have these random wild thoughts, and remember that the biggest lie we tell ourselves is, I'm going to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to remember that. So grab your phone. If you're driving, right, grab your phone, speak into your Notes app or whatever, right? Like dictation has gotten so much better.
It's always interesting, though.
Yeah,
I'll do that when I'm driving, and then I'll look and I was like, huh, what was that? Am I in Spanish?
That is not what I said. Right. But yeah, use the tools. That's what they are, is they're tools. And for today, right, if you're still here and you did the breathing, maybe just write about your breath. Write about what you noticed and experienced before the 3 deep breaths, the 3 mindful connected breaths, and then write about the feelings and experience that you have in your body, both physiological and emotional and mental after. Maybe that's where you end today. Or you can write a bit about what you heard. We talked a whole lot about hunting. So maybe you're into hunting. Maybe you're against hunting. We've had a lot of people that started against hunting and now ask tons of questions about hunting. Maybe they'll never hunt, but they get to hear just a different perspective listening to us. So write about that, and then write about the thoughts on action. I think that's a big one that I don't want to let go, left untouched, is that we talked about your actions aren't guaranteed to have any result. And when you hear that, right, what does that make you think of, right? Does that make you think like, then why am I doing this, right? If that's the case, then there's a whole lot more that we need to look into there. But and you're not wrong, you're not right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. So quit judging, quit passing judgment, but just write about it, and then continue this journal practice. I recommend daily. I recommend multiple times a day. That's why I've been using my phone a lot. But just start writing things down and see where it takes you. And with that, Bree, you have anything to add?
No, that's great.
Cool. Well, thank you, Bree. It was so fun catching up again.
Yeah, good to be back.
Be on the look. Yes.
Back.
Be on the lookout.
Back in the New York groove.
Dance like Bree just did.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not on YouTube watching this, then dance. We got to move. Our bodies want to move, so get out there, move. Get your 10 minutes of sunshine or 30 minutes of cloudy sunshine.
In case you didn't notice, I didn't drink my coffee until about 30 minutes in because I woke up at 6. And the doctor says, unless you're doing a really intense workout first thing in the morning, don't drink coffee for 90 minutes. And that'll help you from crashing in the afternoon and help your circadian rhythm.
We'll have to get more into that on the next episode. But I have yet to wait 90 minutes for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we'll talk about it next time.
Yes. It was good catching up.
Yeah. See you soon.
See ya.